In the 60s and 70s, feminists made efforts to gain full social equality with men. When the Constitution was created, they were not guaranteed the same basic rights as men were. Their job in society was to serve their fathers until they were old enough to marry, and then to serve their husbands. It wasn't until the Seneca Falls Convention in 1848, led by Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, that women even attempted to gain rights. Finally, in 1920, the 20th Amendment was passed, giving women the right to vote. During World War II, women's role began to change. When men left for the war, women filled their spots and worked especially in jobs that supported the war. However, the 50s were a time of conformity, and women were once again seen as housewives and nothing more. By the 60s, women were beginning to get fed up with the strict stereotypes they were under. In 1963, Betty Friedan, a housewife and psychology major, wrote a best-selling novel, The Feminine Mystique. It discussed the unhappiness women felt in their dull, unfulfilled lives. It spread awareness about a woman's situation and encouraged women to want more for themselves.
Hey, here we are in the 1950s, for instance, the early 60s, with this one image of woman and embellished by enormous psychological, psychoanalytic jargon, where woman is defined, feminine fulfillment is defined solely in woman's sexual relation to man, as man's wife, mother, sex object, server of physical needs of husband, children, and home, but never defining herself as a person by her own actions in society. And all it meant to be fulfilled as a woman was to get married as quickly as possible, have the 2, 3, 4 children, this hopefully future executive, successful husband, the split-level house, the wall-to-wall carpeting and the appliances and the station wagon and the second car as quickly as possible. So that it was not considered wrong for women to give up their own education even, you know, to put their husbands through graduate school or business school or whatever it was.
This inspired John F. Kennedy to create the President's Commission on the Status of Women, which was led by Eleanor Roosevelt. This didn't make any actual changes, but it documented gender inequalities in pay, employment, and health services. Not long after, the Equal Pay Act was passed, requiring that women and men working the same job must be paid equally. In 1966, the largest women's rights activist group was formed. It was called NOW, or the National Organization for Women, and was created by Betty Friedan and other women when a resolution supported by feminists was ignored by the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. NOW led many sit-ins, strikes, protests, and marches to help women gain rights. One of their main successes was Title IX in 1972, guaranteeing equal access to education and sports in publicly funded schools for both boys and girls. One of the most famous protests took place in 1968 when the New York Radical Women's Organization protested the 1968 Miss America pageant. Most of the pageant took place on the boardwalk where they had signs comparing Miss America to a cattle auction. They crowned a sheep as Miss America, and they put items of female oppression, such as bras and high heels, into a garbage can. Meanwhile, feminists snuck into the actual pageant, and as the winner was announced, they hung a banner from the balcony reading, "Women's Liberation." In 1973, Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court case, guaranteed the right to a safe, legal abortion to all women. This was symbolic of a woman's newfound rights to control their lives and to choose when to have children, if they have children at all. The one major downfall of the feminist movement was the failure to pass the Equal Rights Amendment, or ERA. Only 35 states ratified it, 38 were needed. It was written by Alice Paul in the 1920s, but there was no push to pass it until the 60s and 70s. It guaranteed 100% equal rights for men and women, to give women reproductive rights, such as legal abortions, to create women's health centers, to give women an equal opportunity for education, employment, and pay, as well as gay rights. It would also get rid of laws protecting women. For example, women would have to sign up for the draft. Phyllis Schlafly, an anti-feminist, was almost solely responsible for preventing the passage of this amendment. Through speeches, her newsletters, and her radio talk show, she was able to keep ERA from receiving the 3 more states it needed to support it. In the end, women did successfully gain equal rights in education, pay, and employment, as well as the right to legal abortions. So the passage of this amendment was not entirely necessary. Today, women and men are seen as equals, and women are expected to have careers and to be educated, just like men are. All thanks to the feminists of the 60s and 70s.